This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Moises Caraballo has taken 2 poles and 2 wins, but it wasn't until round 3 that he managed a lights to flag victory. Yet without the drop races having come into effect on the points, it is actually Abner Acosta who leads the way. The only other winner thus far this season, Acosta seems consistent and wicked fast when he's on his game. Keeping the car safe and bringing it home will likely be important here in Canada as we get ready to watch round 4 of the PRL GTE Sports Car Series, and you'll see it all live here on Global SimRacing Channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Nick Schmeg. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beer. Nick, the official name is Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, but for race fans the world over, I think many of us see this place as simply MotorSport.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be correct, Joe. But the fans call this place a few other things besides MotorSport as well. Daunting, demanding, and sometimes they'll even call it destructive just by its nature. This was built in the 1950s, and after a boom in the 1960s included being added to the Formula One calendar, it began to transition from having an open-wheeled reputation to what motorsports fans know it most famous for today, sports cars. These cars over these vast hills are going to be the most noticeable challenge for the drivers tonight, paired with the limited visibility combined with the high speeds. Clayton and Quebec corners are just pretty terrifying from a driver's perspective, and if not done correctly, they can be brutal with results. The tight Moss corner double apex going uphill is tricky but vital, launching you onto the Mario Andretti straightaway and setting you up for the S's to conclude a 10-turn, 4-kilometer, 2.5-mile loop around Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. To get a better idea, though, of how to perform such a feat, allow me now to send you down to the track for the GSRC lap guide.
All right, we've got Taylor Burris in the GSRC 4 GT, so let's do a lap around MotorSport. Down into turn 1, this is a surprisingly fast downhill right-hander. Very little passing happens into here unless someone makes a big mistake. From out of there, you'll immediately switch back and set up for Clayton. It's a blind entry with a huge drop in elevation, but you've got to trust that your car will stick. Try not to understeer off as you reach the end of it, and before you know it, you're coming up to Quebec. This corner opens up on the exit, which means you can get to the power much sooner than you'd expect. That'll be important considering it'll take you down to the heavy braking zone of Moss. But before you reach that, you've got turn 4, which is another one that will plunge a long ways down. The compression at the bottom of the hill means you can brake surprisingly late. Passes are difficult, but keep your eyes peeled just in case. It's a double apex through Moss, and the second one will be absolutely critical to your lap. That hairpin dumps you onto the Andretti straight, which is the longest acceleration zone of the track. While the GTE cars don't give off that big of a slipstream, because this is an uphill climb, being able to carry momentum off the previous corner will make a huge difference. At the end of this is the S's, which begins with a swift, long right-hand sweeper. Grip can sometimes be found on the outside, which offers a chance to make a sneak attack into turn 9 when it switches back. Finally, there's White's corner, where you want to avoid taking too much curb because it's significantly tall. From there, if you've kept it all together, you've now finished a lap around MotorSport. As always, today's race is of course brought to you by SimMSA. Simulation Motorsports Affinity provides many consulting services, from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and complete events. They're working hard to bring organizations, companies, manufacturers, teams, and drivers together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally. They're also bridging virtual and real motorsports by providing a network between these two, involving sim racers, real drivers, teams, managers, engineers, and of course, motorsports fan alike. You can find out more about how you can get involved at SIMMSA.net. Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by ButtKicker. ButtKicker products create an incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. The winner of Division 1 here in the PRL GTE Sports Car Series will get a ButtKicker Gamer 2 or a simulation kit. Also, both drivers of the winning team in the team's championship will get a free t-shirt. Check them out at thebuttkicker.com. Speaking about those championships and what everybody's fighting for, though, Nick, what are the drivers and teams points looking like?
Well, they're very interesting and a lot different from last year. Karl Modov, after 3 rounds, he's not even on the graphic. He's actually down in 6th place. But at the top, it's Abner Acosta, the only driver in the whole field here in Division 1 to finish in the top 5 in every single race. Only 3 races, too. That just shows you just how competitive this series is now. Michael Diaz going to be in 2nd place with 2 top 5s right behind him. 13 points back. He jumps up 2 spots. Zach Hefner, he is there in 3rd still, jumping up 6 spots. Moises Caraballo, going for 3 wins in a row now after the DNF in round 1 at Monza. So he has got some catching up to do still, but if he can keep the pace, he's going to be in good shape. Christian Eisler there from Team Bushfink rounding out the top 5. We do also have a team's championship, though, and honestly, that is not as close when it comes to the front, but it is close when it comes to second on back with SRT mixing it up still. Oh, they're only in the top 5 once, though. They're in 2nd behind Obsidian Racing, the Racing Sim Tools team. They're in 3rd with Team Bushfink Copper and Ringcone V Racer rounding out the top 5.
Thanks for that update, Nick. And, well, we might have viewers who haven't seen the PRL GTE series before, so let's give you a quick rundown of how this race itself will actually play out. As we mentioned, we are in round 4. They do have 1 drop week. Remember, I mentioned that in the points, and that could shuffle things around once they start taking that into account, because Caraballo definitely has that first race that he wants to forget. Now, there are 4 different cars that are taking part. They've all been balanced by that dreaded word, the BOP, but there's different makes: the Porsche, the Ferrari, Ford, and the BMW. This is 60 minutes this season. If you have been watching, you're just joining this season and have skipped out on the first 3 races. They used to be 45 minutes, now they're 60, but it is still 1 pit stop. They've limited the fuel compared to the real cars, so they are forced to come in and take one to complete the race distance. They also have that incident cap you see at the bottom, so drivers could DNF. Now, granted, this track is known for punishing single mistakes very quickly, so I don't anticipate we'll see many drivers run afoul of that incident cap. If anything, the bigger concern, is probably the fact that they have no spare car to save them in case that happens. And as always, this series is being broadcast on the iRacing Esports Network. Make sure and go over to the YouTube page. If you haven't subscribed yet, you'll see a big red button that says subscribe. Click that and you'll get all of IESN in your YouTube feed, including each and every week of the PRL GTE Sports Car Series. Currently, qualifying is out on track, and Michael Diaz is actually your provisional pole sitter. Caraballo is closely following. He has been incredibly fast for the poles so far this season. And as we watch Diaz coming up the Mario Andretti straight, a little bit slow. Looks like he's maybe on a warm-up lap and just coming up to the line as he tries to find himself some clear track and stay out of everybody's way. Modov is back on his game. He was good in warm-up, Nick, and it looks like he's not going to have the same problem in this qualifying as he had last time.
Yeah, I don't think so. It looks pretty good right now, and this track, as we take a look at him now, I mean, this track, the consequences are really quick to bite you if you just take a wheel off track a lot of times, and the 1X, of course, will bite you here in qualifying and disallow your time. Karl Modov here trying to keep that from happening, but yeah, he's already put up a 3rd place result so far in qualifying, so even with some late entries here in the last 5 minutes, it looks like he's going to have a fairly good starting spot on the grid.
Also, if for those who did just join in this season, who have watched previously, they've actually split the competition. This is considered Division 1 now, even though we've got, I believe, 31 cars currently out there who are looking to take part. They have two separate divisions that are racing, and Karl Modoff now moves into the pole, displacing two drivers to jump up to the top spot by almost 2/10. Wow.
He's definitely looking like last season's Karl Modoff a lot more after a lap like that. I was wondering if he's going to go all winless this season, or if the problems are just going to continue to pile up, but it looks like he's definitely looking to get back to victory lane with that kind of speed.
Watching a driver who should be a little higher up in the qualifying, but isn't very right now. He's down in 17th, Sean McBeth. His fastest at a 1:13.6. That last lap, I believe, was a warm-up lap, so now he should be on a flyer. As we look at Pete Mobrotten as well, working his way around. He's in 11th. Switching over to Macbeth and watching from on top of his hood as he works his way around Moss Hairpin. That's Corey Clark trying to stay out of his way, but not doing so quite successfully, unfortunately. So that could slow up the number 252.
Sean McBeth is another driver, just like Karl Modoff, who has not had the results this season in the first quarter of the season that he would like to. In fact, he hasn't even found the top 5 yet. Best finish was 6th back in round 2. And he also had a 9th and a 10th place. So consistently in the top 10. He'd like to make that a top 5 run, though.
All right, let's see what this time lap holds. And it is faster, actually. 4/10 faster. That's good enough for 8th place. That looks a little more representative of what we're used to seeing from Macbeth. Question is, can the driver who has really been probably one of the fastest we've seen all season long, Moises Caraballo, get himself back on the top? He's just exiting out of the pits now and on his warm-up lap. So I think the 8:27 is going to get around in time for maybe 2 more laps. It's going to be a little tight.
They definitely log the laps off pretty quickly here, just over 1 minute and 12 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely do. And whenever we've got a short lap, that always worries me a little bit because, and especially on a track like this where there's very few long straights. What about lap traffic, Nick? Do you think this is going to be an issue?
Yeah, I definitely expect that. I think it's safe to say we're going to deal with some lap traffic, especially those front runners with 30 cars here, 31 cars actually here at Motorsport. I definitely think that it might get a little difficult, especially with passing being so difficult here. You can stay out of a way, but we've seen it already a couple times in qualifying. You can stay out of someone's way, but you're still going to throw them off pretty significantly in most of these turns.
Modoff starting another lap. Diaz is actually coming across now. He's in 2nd currently, and that one did not count for Diaz, so I think he's just starting a flyer of his own. What about our only other winner so far this season, Abner Acosta? He just started another lap. He's got a 13.1 on the one before that lap as his fastest, good enough for 5th place. And currently, Abner Acosta is the only driver in the field who has gotten top 5s in all 3 races. I mentioned that consistency. Can he continue that trend at today's race? That's the question.
Yeah, he doesn't have a win. Actually, he does have 1 win, but if he doesn't have, the wins like Carballo has and the momentum, he does have that momentum from being consistent. And it's given him a 13-point lead right now in the standings. So if he can keep that up this season, it's going to show that the wins are not necessarily what's going to matter. It's these really good, consistent top 5 finishes.
Watching Abner Acosta, who is actually just ahead of Diaz. So Acosta will go across first. And this one, a 1:13.1, just less than a 10th slower than his fastest so far. And Diaz as well, not able to improve, about 2/10 down of his fastest lap. 10 seconds left now as Karl Modoff starts his last flying lap. This is Carballo Caraballo comes through the S's. Moises having just one more turn to go, and the checkered flag comes out. So this is it for him. He's got to try and get himself onto the front row. And a 1:12.8 is good enough for that. Second place, just outside of Modov. Here comes Macbeth now. Coming through turns 8 and 9, and then White's corner to follow. 252 Porsche. A little bit of an awkward line through that last bit of the lap, and he knows it. He immediately pulls over. That was a bad one for him, so he will not be able to improve on that 10th place.
Just a couple spots back. Nick Harwood and another Porsche coming through the S's.
I'm watching Zach Hefner as well, who's coming across, and wow, Hefner with a horrible qualifying from what we've seen from him in the past. He is 17th. That is a Ferrari that we might see climbing up the order as things go on. And I don't believe we have anybody else who is able to complete a lap. That should be everybody, because Hefner is the last one out there still running. We know he came across the line after the checkers. So with that, we have a grid set. Let's go through our starting order and tell you how things will kick off. Karl Modov gets himself a pole with Moises Caraballo starting in P2. Michael Diaz will be P3 on the inside of row 2. Javi Utreres will be starting in 4th. Abner Acosta got a podium last time around. He'll be starting from 5th. He's got a few cars to pass if he wants to get another podium. Andrew Caron starts in 6th position with Christian Eisler in 7th. Nick Harwood will be P8, and then it's Tony Costello in 9th. And Lee Peterson, great qualifying for him in the top 10.
Sean Macbeth is going to miss out on the top 10 by 4/1000ths of a second. He's going to be rolling off in P11, being flanked on the outside by Fernando Borda in the 7 car. William Laster is going to be starting 13th, and Josh Daniels alongside of him in the 07 going to be 14th. Pete Mobrotten will round out your top 15 on row 8 with Cristobal Valenzuela alongside. Zachary Hefner behind them. You mentioned he might be climbing up through the field. We'll have to see if he can, alongside Pablo Valenzuela Uribe in 18th. Row number 10 going to be Justin Rame and Michael Stogbauer.
21st goes to Sebastian Maciera with Jeffrey Arroyan in 22nd. Rodrigo Munoz will be P23. On the outside of him will be Cody Bauman. Then Corey Clark starts in 25th. Andre Espinoza P26, and Tyler Gilmet in 27th. Joey Trungale and Matthew Hall were the last 2 drivers to get times in. Then you get to drivers who didn't manage to put one down. Takeshi Kita will be starting from 30th, and Sean Wright, who does not appear to be in the session, would start 31st, but we'll see if he actually manages to come in and take the grid. He's going to run out of time soon to try and do that, because our Porsche pace car will take off pretty quickly here. Let's take a quick glance at the weather while we wait for them to do their pace lap as we pull that up. And looking at the track temperature, Nick, is this going to cause more complications for drivers?
Probably. I don't know if it's going to be as noticeable as maybe other tracks, just because we have so many hills here, and I'm not sure if that's going to be as effective being over 100 degrees Fahrenheit there, but I definitely think they're going to feel it in those wide swooping turns, maybe even the S's, which are pretty flat as well. They're going to be sliding a little bit more there, so they might need to make a couple of adjustments, air pressure adjustments and whatnot before they get out on the track, but they're going to have a challenge regardless of the weather, I think, as the pace lap, it looks like, beginning to roll.
Indeed, that Porsche pace car leads them away and through the first plunging corner around the outside of that pit exit. We'll go racing for 60 minutes here soon in round 4 at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. We're on a string of 2 wins in the last 2 rounds from Moises Caraballo. It could have been 3. He started from the pole at Monza, but was wrecked in the very first corner and could not come back to recover. Today, as he starts it from 2nd place, he's in a good spot to continue and make it a hat trick, but Modov still searching for that first win this season. Looks like he's got the bit between his teeth.
Yeah, he's only finished first and last so far this season, so right now starting second. I'm very interested to see what he's going to do here in turn one on lap one. A lot of times here at Motorsport, you can get a big outside swooping run there, but Karl Modhoff is going to be a tough one to try to get around.
Certainly. Well, and that would put you on the inside of Clayton, but going too wide through Clayton, whether you're on the inside or outside, to me is almost always a risky move.
I think I'd get nervous going too wide on the pace lap right now. I don't know if I'd want to do that at full speed.
As they come now to the Mario Andretti straight. Speaking of speed, this is the fastest portion of the track, climbing a long ways uphill towards the S's. So this is where drivers should probably be looking for overtaking attempts. The question is, can they manage to get it done before they get to those S's in that fast entry? As they now look to get all squared up and get in a nice tidy order for that green flag. Just 3 more corners to go. It has been a fascinating season with lots of new blood coming in, challenging very established and some very dominant drivers, and proving that as this series gains in popularity, it tends to make it all the more difficult to win. Green flag is out, and immediately before they even get to the first turn, Modhoff is already ahead of Caraballo, so he doesn't have to worry about that outside run. In fact, most of the cars look like they are getting single file in the first corner.
They are indeed. They head downhill now. Caraballo continuing to try to chase Modhoff, but yeah, most of them single file as they head back uphill. All the way back, it looks like, to 12th place single file.
Not seeing anybody having serious problems or spins. One car was off outside of turn 1, managed to bring it back on. It was a BMW, but don't need to go to it. A little bit of a challenge for third place as Javier Treras was trying to get by Michael Diaz, but that didn't work. And I'm seeing we got an incident with Pablo Uribe. That Ferrari was turned around in Moss for some reason.
Wondering what kind of run down the Mario Andretti straightaway here that Caraballo is going to get. He's going to take a peek to the outside, trying to get around Modhoff, but it looks like the 948 is going to be able to shut the door going through the S's for the first time this evening.
Lap 1 already being completed, but it's looking like we'll have a good fight on our hands. The Ferrari pressuring Karl Modhoff to see if he can try to get by. As we saw one of the cars try and peek out coming back into turn 1. I didn't quite see who that Porsche was as we go on board with the multicolored car of Karl Modhoff.
You're going to look back and you can really see just how much elevation change there is here. You can see how close Caraballo gets there too as well. Shows you just how hard passing and overtaking is here.
And the last time we saw at least a somewhat valid attempt at an overtake was coming up to the end of this straightaway. So, can Caraballo repeat the feat, or is Modhoff going to be able to cover himself off and keep him back? We ride on board looking through the windscreen of Moises. The number 827 starts to gain in the slipstream. I'm not sure that he's going to be quite close enough, although he will gain plenty of time, and indeed, he backs out of it by the time they get off the throttle.
It is a little bit of a curvy straightaway there. It's hard to tell sometimes if a move like that to go sharply to the right is, just flowing with the nature of the track, or if it is defensive. But it looks like, regardless, Karl Modhoff going to be able to keep that position.
A little bit farther back, got a lot of pressure being applied to Christian Eisler from Nick Harwood. Though now, as we go back to that, he's backing off. Oh, and we've had an incident behind them. Zach Hefner. Bad day just got worse. He was attempting one of the many overtakes we expected from him on Borda into turn 1, and it went bad for both of them in a big way.
He had already climbed 4 spots as well. He was up to 13th, looking for 12th.
Got
just
into
about,
Borda.
Yeah. Just about immediate consequences too.
You watch it from above. Borda is in the black Ferrari that you see, Hefner in the white one. Yeah, hard to tell who really can be to blame for that. But regardless, it did result in 2 cars falling to the back of the field with some big damage. We return to the front of the fields, and Modov has responded. Caraballo is now nearly a second behind.
Yeah, fantastic lap there for Karl Modov. He's definitely looking like the form we saw him last season. Caraballo might need to take a look at his rearview mirror now instead, because Michael Diaz, however, has not fallen off. He's right there with him still.
He's used to this view because Diaz hounded him all the way to the finish in the Nürburgring in Germany. And both cars finished where they started, which was first and second. Now, Diaz started this one in third, and Caraballo started this one in second. So will they repeat that, or will one of them be able to change their spot? Hopefully somewhere upwards for them. Oh, we have a lot. Oh, sorry, I thought we could jump back, but no, we got some action here happening because Diaz is looking to try and move his position upwards on Caraballo. Not quite able to do it with that run up the Andretti straight. Utreras as well behind him, managing to gain, and this is forming a very tightly packed train.
It really is. Caraballo really having to hold him off here. He's definitely shifted his attention to going defensive here. It looks like he goes a little wide there. Diaz really hugs the inside of turn number 1.
Now this goes from second back to 6th position and includes Caraballo at the front, then Diaz, Utreras, Acosta, and Corone all together within roughly about a second and a half of each other. Breaking down hard in the compression for Moss Hairpin, squaring off the second half of the corner. And it's a decent run by Moises to keep himself safe, but the same cannot be said for Utreras, who suddenly has Abner Acosta gaining very quickly.
This is their best opportunity to try to overtake. Looks like Diaz taking a peek to Caraballo, getting very tight.
Wow, almost looked like Moises gave that one up. He left the inside open, but then covers off Utreras, who suddenly gets the door shut on him. Javi tries to launch himself off of Whites, but it's just not a long enough straight down into the quick first corner, so he backs out of it.
Caraballo still not looking too comfortable right now in that car. Looks like with a little mistake, Javi definitely going to be able to eat that lead up, it looks like.
I tell you what, Modov is loving this too. He's extended that gap now up to 1.8 seconds because of the battling between Diaz and Moises. Whoa, and that was a big bobble from Caraballo. He somehow collects that Ferrari, but it is still squirming under power as he seems to have lit up the rears. Utreras now gets a run on him. Looks to the inside very early on the Mario Andretti straight. I think as long as he can send it in deep into this right-hander, he might have this one. And once again, we're seeing Caraballo give it up early. 2 positions gone in that one corner.
He doesn't look to be wanting to race side by side this early, maybe. He's got Andrew Karen right behind him, who almost got him as well.
This is very unlike Caraballo. Now we've got 2 cars in the pit lane seeming to have taken a tow. Hall was one of those, and I think Trungale as well. I'm checking to see what happened. I think it's 2 separate incidents.
I believe it is as well. Joey Trungale, it looks like, I'm sorry, that was actually Matthew Hall who went off first.
Yeah, and then Trungale followed him.
This is down
in the same
Clayton.
corner at the same time. Yeah. Meanwhile, on screen, look at this action going on between Corona and Caraballo. So there's got to be damage or something on Moises. This is very, very unusual for him. He's got Andrew challenging him, and they've slowed up enough that Eisler and Harwood has joined the fray.
don't think it has anything to do with fuel saving this early. Yeah, it seems pretty aggressive if it is.
I can't imagine. I wouldn't think that that's really an issue at this track or a strategy that would work out well enough, especially since he's fallen back nearly 5 seconds from the leader. And we're not even 10 minutes in.
Quite possibly just doesn't feel comfortable running alongside other cars here and wants to take it easy, at least in the first 10 minutes.
Back in 10th place, we've got more cars getting lined up. They're being led by Pete Mobrotten and William Laster, Josh Daniels, and Michael Stogbauer are all following. For the moment, Pete has a big enough gap that he doesn't need to feel too threatened, but one little mistake could certainly put him in a precarious position. He's got about half a second back to the forward of Laster.
Mobratten's done a great job as well in this race. Started 15th, already up 5 spots into the top 10. Definitely the biggest mover that is in the top 10 now.
Worth noting that Laster is our highest Ford out there of the very few of them that are running today. Looks like we've only got 2 cars. The other one is Tyler Gilmet. This is looking a lot more like the mode-off of seasons past, as he has pulled the gap out now to over 2 seconds over Michael Diaz. Actually kind of curious. I wonder if we could pull up lap comparisons between Modoff and Diaz, because now that Michael's been in clear air, we should have an idea of if he's fast enough to try and run him down. Now, the gap is saying that he isn't, but let's see what this gives us. Diaz was a tenth faster on lap 7. Remember, some of that he could have been still behind Caraballo. Oh, and did Acosta just overtake Gutierrez? Let's take a look at how this happened. This kind of snuck up on us.
On the backstretch, it looks like, on the Mario Andretti straightaway. Great slipstream move.
Okay, Acosta, 2 podiums so far this season, a first and a third. And then in Watkins Glen, he barely missed out on a podium, finishing 4th. In fact, he chased Modoff all the way to the line for that one. We got some side-by-side battling between Macbeth and Valenzuela. This is for 14th position. I almost think that Macbeth just either lost the position recently or had a failed overtake. He's going to go for another one. Ooh. The over-under down into the very difficult Moss corner. A little bit of curb upsets the car. He's not going to be able to get the launch that he needs, but Macbeth is digging deep in his book of tricks.
He's trying to fight back. Remember, he started in 11th. He's back to 15th here, so he's looking to make up some ground that he lost. The slipstream on the outside of the first S here. Looks like he's going to be able to hold on to it.
Wow, that was something else. So I wonder, could we get an onboard of that run into the Moss hairpin? I'm not sure that I've ever seen someone pull an over-under through the first apex like that. It's gutsy stuff. Look at this.
Really off-camber turn there. I mean, it's going uphill.
Just about did it. If he hadn't clipped that curve, yeah. I think he almost would have had it.
You can't see anything going through there anyway, or either way. I mean, regardless of whether or not he had the BMW right in front of him.
He takes the position. On board. Great view on that replay. He is continued to fend off Valenzuela as we are back live once again. So Macbeth retains P14. Set up to Caraballo once again. He's still dealing with Caron, who has not been able to overtake him, but he's also losing track of the cars ahead and going a little bit wide out of the final corner. Is going to open the door for Andrew. Down into turn 1, he finishes the job.
Still really fascinating because it looks like Caraballo might be fighting back on the outside here of Clayton. That is some risky stuff there. He's going to try an over-under here as they head into Quebec, but I don't think he's going to get it. He's still going to pull up alongside just a little bit, just enough to show himself in the mirrors.
Slow car or not, Moises has retained his fighting spirit, that's for sure. He stays glued to the rear of Andrew's number 27. It doesn't give him an opportunity. He does poke his nose through the inside of Moss Corner, and that curb once again. Oh my goodness. That car is a handful.
Look at how big now the gap is. I mean, he is really struggling with that car because the entire Andretti straightaway now is just ruined for Caraballo.
I am just baffled as to what is going on. We have the temperatures have lowered somewhat. It is down to 101 degrees, and he's coming in early. I think this is about as early as you can get in. Oh, and he tows. Caraballo not happy with the performance. He's disconnected. He's done. So he's not only used up his drop week, he's now also going to have a very poor score for today as we hop up to second place. Michael Diaz, who has continued to fall off of Karl Modoff 3 seconds.
Contreras still really hounding Acosta here.
Oh, we had a car off
in
the wall.
On the straightaway.
Andrew Caron.
Oh.
Actually, you know what? I think he managed to avoid the wall. Let's look at the replay.
Oh, I think he did it too. This is a heck of a drive here from Caron.
Off into the dirty stuff. The way when I went to him, I saw him counter steering right there. I thought for sure, he must have slammed into those tires. No, he just was gathering it up, but he lost a lot of positions. He is back in 9th now. This is great news for Nick Harwood. Remember, he gained a position from the loss of Caraballo, and now with that off track for Andrew, Harwood is up to P5. The ride on board with Pete Mobrotten. With Andrew Caron chasing Mobrotten as they come up to Tony Costello. This is actually for position. I'm not sure why Tony was slow as Pete gets a little loose on the entry into the hairpin. Tries to gun it off the corner, but he's awful slow. And Andrew Caron's now got the run on him.
Really interesting what kind of line Mobrotten took there into Moss Corner. Didn't give himself much of a first apex, and now he's going to pay for it.
Yep, the slipstream helps Andrew to the inside. The number 27 retakes 8th position. Next on his list is going to be Costello. Laps ticking away very quickly here with just a minute and a quarter to try and circulate around each time. And with us past 15 minutes into this race, these drivers will be looking at probably close to 50 laps or so. Meanwhile, battle for 16th. Sebastian Maciera leading Arroyan, Espinoza following in the train, and then Corey Clark in there in 19th.
Arroyan and Maciera look to be the closest of any of these four. Arroyan chasing Maciera there for 16th.
His been a hot spot for passing up the Mario Andretti straight. Maciera is a little bit under threat with Arroyon pulling that slipstream. Does he go defensive? Yes, he does. Holds just the middle of the track. Arroyon thinks twice about the overtake and backs off. On board with Seb now, looking back at the Ferrari of Jeffrey. And so far we've seen that roughly 40 minutes is how far these cars can go on the fuel tank. And we are getting awful close to that mark, to that pit window being open. So, who are going to be our early takers? Oh, and what's going on with a car off track here? Not sure who that was that pulled over.
That is Fernando Borda.
That was a lapped car, and it looks like he was ahead of a long train of cars, so he's trying to pull over and stay out of the way.
Yeah.
And just simply stopped it at the side of the track until he got a gap. So Uterres, I don't know why I'm struggling with that name. Javi is ahead of Acosta right now. In third place, but Abner is certainly pressurizing him, looking to get himself yet another podium. Go 3 for 4 this season. Lunging down into the braking for the Moss hairpin. Just ahead of the second place Diaz is only about a second and a half up. So depending on the pace and depending on if they start battling, this could wind up being for P2.
Definitely.
Ooh, William Laster just had an off. He's falling down the order out of Moss. I think this was a solo mistake through the hairpin, similar to what we saw
with Karen
earlier.
Very similar. The second apex there in Moss.
Off into the gravel, sees it coming, gets the car slowed up, returns to the track, dragging a bunch of gunk onto the circuit, but at least he can continue, but he's now down in 14th because of that move. Let's jump back up to that battle for P3 that we just ducked away from. Acosta about a half second back. And Javi, within the lap that we last spoke of it, has chopped away at Diaz by a pretty significant amount. The gap was a second and a half. It is now 7/10.
We were looking at Diaz and Modoff, and we saw that Modoff was a bit faster, so Contreras looking like he was definitely pretty consistently challenging Acosta, and then once he got around him, now we're seeing him really start to chase down Diaz.
All three of these drivers have not gained on Karl Modoff. That is now 4 seconds between themselves and P1. They swing it through Clayton. And it is a 3 BMW train here, all following a Porsche distantly ahead. Still not seeing any takers for scheduled pit stops. Everybody is out and continuing on. Wow. Number 10 is on a tear. It is now down to 0.5 of a second, but behind Michael Diaz. And I'm starting to think that Diaz is going to get a little bit sick of being in this position, though. Last 2 races, he finished in 2nd place.
Well, if he can be consistent enough, Modov is back in 6th in the points, so I think Diaz might find... I don't think he's going to want to be here every single race, but I think right now he's pretty happy with it. I'm not sure if it's going to last for long, though, because that gap is really starting to close back to Javi and Abner, actually.
3/10 of a second now between...
Yeah, they're starting to bunch up.
It's starting to look a little bit like it is a matter of time when he'll be completely caught here, and whether or not there will be an attack from that yellow BMW. Tries to get himself the good run off the corner, and I think he's a little closer than what we've seen on previous laps. Is his slipstream going to be enough? When he's starting to weave to try and break it, Diaz feeling a little bit threatened here.
I think he's going to hold on to it this lap. He's got to put together 10 more turns, and we'll see about that again. Unless Javi can get him some other place in the track, that would be bold, depending on where it is. No look down into turn number 1.
I mean, it might be worth pulling a surprise attack. Do it where he's not expecting it, and then he won't be defending. They come through Clayton. Look how close he's getting now. Man, this Bimmer is very strong. That was Joey Trungell that we saw off track. Don't need to go to that. Not exactly sure what happened to him, but he's halted on the outside of Clayton. Diaz now plunging down towards the Moss hairpin, who could maybe attempt to pass. He does not. He's going to wait to set it up off of here. Oh, look at the car squirm under power. Don't need to go to it, but I can tell fans of Sebastian Masieta that he clipped the outside wall out of Clayton. But we want to keep an eye here to see if the pass is made. And no, it's not, at least not into turn 8. Gutierrez continuing to try and pull that slipstream up the Andretti straight, and it is not producing fruit.
I wonder how content he is there riding in that sandwich.
See, I think Acosta is the most content of these 3. He's just kind of watching to see what happens and what unfolds.
Even if Acosta was in front of Gutierrez, I don't know if he'd be making a move there necessarily around Diaz, his teammate. So I think he is pretty content there.
Acosta is our championship leader. So if anything, I would say that he probably would make a move to try to get around his teammate, because he wants to try and take a championship here. So I'm sure Diaz does as well. A little farther down, Mo Broughton has himself a nice little fight. This is for P8 that he's trying to relinquish from the number 55, Tony Costello. Costello's going to stay defensive into turn 8. Mo Broughton tries to take it in deep, but can't get the car side by side. Another little peek into turn 9, and still nothing doing.
Mo Broughton has continued to move up to the field. Very impressive run from him. Up 6 spots so far. And that's from a guy that we don't usually see make those long, impressive runs up to the top 10. So a great run for him.
Looks like it's about to become 7, the way that he is hounding Costello. Looking for either a way by or maybe a mistake from the green and white number 55.
He's coming off a top 10 last week at Nürburgring as well, so this could be somewhat of a breakout season for Pete.
Ooh, takes it in awful deep. Almost looked like he clipped the gravel on the outside, but he keeps with him. In fact, he stays right underneath the rear wing, and this might be the time that he needs. Pete Mo Broughton with the run, using the slipstream, The inside, Tony Costello stays defensive. This time he is side by side, looking to hold on. There's not much grip, but it swings back in his favor as they come to the inside, and he gets chopped off at the nose. Tony Costello is not willing to give up yet.
Really close chase there from Mo Broughton.
He's I tell you what, he's having to take it as much as he has given it, because Tony was pretty fierce in his defense there. I certainly wouldn't have been brave enough to try and chop him off coming into that left-hander. And he felt like he was clear enough. They keep fighting. They do have Sean Macbeth coming in a hurry behind them.
A little bit of a battle behind Macbeth I've kept an eye on as well. Stockbyar chasing Daniels.
Oh, and that was Caron off track again and into the wall this time.
Yeah, this time not as lucky. It looks like he did find the tire barrier. I don't think it was a very vicious hit.
No, an embarrassing slide down into the tires. And if he did get any damage, I think it's maybe just cosmetic. But this slots him down to 15th. What could have been potentially a top 5 for Andrew has really slipped through his fingers. Ooh, Mo Broughton in. And this looks scheduled. He hits his stall. Should be expecting about a 13 to 14 second stop. 11 seconds, just under 12 actually, for the number 15. Very fast stop. Nicely done. That'll bring him back out in 20th position.
That's the perfect stop he needed there to keep him going.
And critically, you could see he came out in front of a train of cars.
Yeah.
That's Rodrigo Munoz. So this gives him clear air to try and run. A lot of clear air, honestly. Let's jump back to that battle for P2. Javi is just making life hell for Michael Diaz. Continues to just fill up his rear view mirrors. And they are now past halfway in the race. At this point, if you're put yourself in the cockpit of the number 10, Nick, do you take the strategy that we saw from Mo Broughton, pit early, because it seems like you're struggling to get around the car ahead, or do you stick with the plan and try to pressure a mistake out of Diaz?
Well, you'd like to go the strategic route, I think, and maybe hop him with a pit stop, but man, I don't know. It looks like Javi's having too much fun out there to come into the pits right now. I think he might have to try the undercut, but looks like he's he's become more content. I've seen this looks to the inside in a couple turns.
All right, what has he got this time? Yep, he lifts a little early on their way into turn 8. So I think your assessment might be right there. Maybe he's just kind of thinking, I'm not doing too much harm. I'm not going to run down Modoff at this point. Let's just sit here and let the race come to me.
Yeah, I think he knows as well that if he wanted to be aggressive, just like he was with Acosta, I think that assuming he can keep Michael Diaz here at length, I think he can get him if he decides to be aggressive enough in the later stages of this race, whether he jumps him in the pits or not.
Oof, you want to see a good save. If we get a replay on Leif Peterson coming through turns 8 and 9, he may have lost a position from this moment that he just had. We got the replay here. We just left when he went off track. We'll stay on this replay then until then. Oh, well, this is Clayton that we're seeing. Well, this is a completely separate incident from what I saw just minutes after the one that I saw. We don't need to go back to the one that I was looking for because this is much more dramatic. Poor Leif Peterson managed to save the car in one corner and completely lose it the next time through.
He had the rears lit up, it looks like. We've seen that a couple times tonight, like with Caraballo earlier. Just after making one mistake, it's so hard not to make another one just directly after it.
I mean, it is still 100 degrees Fahrenheit out on the track surface, so I wonder if preserving your rears is something drivers need to worry about, as we've got another taker for a scheduled stop. This time it is Sean Macbeth. Now he was, actually wasn't he, he was coming up to the back of Mo Broughton, who's dealing with traffic himself. He was just overtaking the damaged Peterson. Macbeth is out of his stall. Where is... Oh, Mo Broughton is behind him. He jumped him. So, Sean Macbeth, pitting at the right time, gives himself a little bit of clear air and at least one position overtaken with that pit stop. Still, not very many drivers have come in. Rodrigo Munoz has been in and out for a scheduled stop. We saw Peterson coming in, but that was not scheduled. He's getting the damage repaired from the replay that we saw. And interestingly, even though Macbeth is ahead, he was slightly slower in his stall, but just by a hair. Apparently not enough that it mattered. Valenzuela comes in. Dominoes are starting to fall here, Nick. I see Clark, Espinoza.
Yeah. Looks like these pit stops have triggered most everyone else to do that. All of the front runners is staying out for now, but we'll keep an eye on them.
Yeah, it doesn't look like anybody feels under threat by the strategy calls up at the front of the field. Espinoza back out. Same thing with Valenzuela. Returning to second place, which has been the most entertaining thus far. At least for a while it was. It's cooled down now that Uterres has decided to just cruise. Looks like Acosta's having a little bit of trouble staying with them. Oh, another front runner coming in. Tony Costello.
All right, yeah, he was up in the top 10. A couple different battles of his own.
He hits his stall. Waiting to get that fuel in. Sean Macbeth, I can tell you, is coming through whites. Costello still stationary, and he's out. Macbeth has got his speed up, and he's going to get by him as well. Costello also going to be jumped by Mo Broughton, who was in a fight with him. Well, this is interesting. It's starting to look like the undercut really counts for something,
yeah.
Although Costello's pit stop was a 13.8, so that's a little bit slower than both Macbeth and Mo Broughton.
We're going to have to see if that means anything when it comes to that pack of 3 cars that was battling for second. They are still out there, Diaz, Utrera, and Acosta.
Yeah, if any of them have a crew chief or someone helping them, they hopefully they're watching this and saying, pit now, the advantage while you can get it. Only 22 minutes left to go, so that pit window is now closing pretty soon. We should see a few more drivers coming in. This is the driver that's leading everybody, Karl Modhoff, looking to get that first win of the season, a 2-time champion, coming back after a few bad qualifying days. Watkins Glen was the only one that he did decently so far before here today, where he put it on pole. And honestly, Karl Modhoff has not looked all that bothered by anybody. All of the top 4 all stay out. So does Harwood in 5th, just continuing to pump out laps on his lonesome.
Doesn't look like anyone that hasn't pit yet is going to come in on this lap.
Now, remember we saw Zach Hefner with an issue early in the race, and I thought he'd have lots of damage. Well, I don't see him as having come in to take a pit yet. And okay, there we can see some of the damage on the car. It doesn't seem to be affecting him too badly because he's running 17th. And he's not elected to come in to repair that. He's happy with his pace.
And that would tell me as well that when he does come in, he's only coming in for fuel. I don't think he's going to get too many of those repairs done. Trying to salvage as much track position as possible for points.
Well, you can see out the windscreen, there's nobody in front of him. So maybe he's happy just having a whole lot of track to himself to focus on what he's doing and not really worry about trying to overtake anyone. So as long as he's got that clear air, I kind of don't blame him. Stogbauer is in, so is Laster. Ooh, a lot of drivers coming in. Karen joins them.
These guys, I think, maybe too far apart for any of them to really significantly come out differently. But we'll take a look.
Yeah, Laster is going to come out just behind Stogbauer, but they are going to be in the midst of a little bit of a fight. This is Tony Costello, who has pitted, and he just sneaks in front of Will Laster. So that puts Costello into 13th, and we got a car off track. That is Masiera once again.
Getting out of the way, it looks like.
Ooh, Diaz is in.
Okay.
This was the driver leading the trio.
Yeah. He may have been anticipating a move that he expected Utreras to do. Well, he's taken that option away from Javi.
But Javi is now in clear air himself. The number 10 could maybe outrun him on pace. We haven't really been seeing anybody take tires, but it will cool your tires down, I would assume.
Look at the gap Javi's already put between himself and Abner Acosta. I think he's definitely seen this as an opportunity to kind of unleash that car of his.
Question is, will he respond right away? Does he even have any fuel to go much farther? Or is this going to be it? Does he have to pit now to keep from running out? We'll find out in about 2 corners time. Turn 9. This is the pit entry here. And he's in. But Acosta is not.
Yeah. So that's going to be interesting to see what he can do now.
And our leader's in. Carl Modoff pits. So he went until it was dry. Nick Harwood also comes in behind them. Where is Diaz? Diaz coming around through the S's currently.
Utreras still in his box. Now he's rolling.
Great stop for Utreras. 11 seconds. Where's Diaz? Diaz is coming, but I'm not sure if he's got the steam. Wow. Look at 1 lap difference.
Unbelievable. That's a huge gap between them. I'm almost wondering if Acosta is going to be anywhere close to jumping Diaz here. He's so far back.
Now, Diaz did have about a second slower stop in his stall from what I'm seeing to Javi. So that could explain some of it. The rest of it, because I mean, that looked like a 2-second swing, just about. So what's the gap between them? Yeah. Yeah, 1.2
about a
between
second
them.
about a second in the stop difference and a second in the lane difference.
All right, what about Abner Acosta? Last of our leaders to take a stop, and I think Josh Daniels will be the last driver out on track to pit as well. Javier Trez is coming out of the final corner. Acosta is done, but Javi is by, and so is Michael Diaz. So Acosta not looking like a podium. In fact, wow, Acosta really slow in his pit stop.
Yeah, it doesn't look like he's going to lose any extra positions, but Nick Harwood not too far behind him. He's actually closer to Nick Harwood than he is up to Diaz.
He may have been able to hang on to the coattails for the most of the race in that three-car train, but I'm afraid that gravy train has left the station. And Acosta, unless something dramatic happens or some traffic allows him to recatch Diaz, is not going to be able to get onto the podium. Oh, and we got a problem with Michael Stogbauer backwards on the track. I think this was a lone car incident. Certainly gave it all the drivers behind him a big scare. This is Laster, Costello. Woo, look at that. And Caron all taking evasive action.
I had to thread the needle in between the tire barrier and Stogbauer, who was sitting sideways.
Watch Laster, though, from on board. He's going to get not just his position from Stogbauer, but Costello ahead of him.
Oh, my gosh. On the curb.
Position. Look at that. Both cars. Great heads up by the Ford driver. That is my move of the race. Sometimes keep your head on a swivel and be on your nerves, and so you'll find positions that you didn't think you could get. That bumps Laster up to P9. All right, Carl Modoff, you have been just hanging out front. You've gapped everybody to about 7.2 seconds. You've got a quarter of the race left to go. You seem unfazed. Does this seem familiar to you, sir? Tongue is doing awful today in trying to pronounce any words, frankly. Give some screen time to the very Technicolor Porsche of the 948, our current reigning champion, finally getting this championship run underway. Last round, without a qualifying time, was put 27th on the grid and wound up 8th when all was said and done. But because of that, and his issues at Monza, that Watkins Glen race remains his sole podium. He's going to add that today here in round 4. Jumping up to that top spot. So, Laster did manage to get by Costello, but Tony's got some more company behind him. Here's Andrew Caron. Remember, he's made multiple mistakes. He's trying to make a recovery drive, having qualified P6th. He just wants to get into the top 10.
Yeah, very tight battle back here. And these are two guys we saw come into the pits pretty much together as well. And we saw them battling before that.
Ooh, good run off the corner. That was a mistake from Costello, but it's so hard to pass into one. And that BMW driver knows it. He lifts before they get to the right-hander. Applying a lot of pressure here, though.
He is. Caron is all over the back of him.
Whoa! Oh, as he has a big slide on his way through Quebec, dips the wheels off into the grass and saves it, but he loses a lot of ground. That's the third mistake of the day we've seen from Andrew. At least this one didn't send him into the wall. A little bit farther down, let's go to Tyler Gilmet in P16. Corey Clark, teammate of our leader, Carl Modoff, trying to contribute to those team points. He wants a t-shirt at the end of the season. And Gilmet, with a good run off of Moss Corner, will deny him a chance towards getting more points that would get him that wardrobe, but I don't think we'll see Clark give up on this quite yet. He's got 11 minutes left to try and get this one done.
All he's got to do is get close enough to him so he can jump him on the Andretti straightaway and then try to hold him off through the S's on the last lap, but he's got to get close to him in the other 9 turns as well. And it looks like he's just struggling to do that right now.
I wonder if ButtKicker can get us some photos of what those shirts look like. I'm really curious. Maybe they have a target near the bottom of the back of the shirt to match their name.
That would be good.
Thinking out loud. I should probably not be in charge of marketing for ButtKicker. Meanwhile, as we head up to Eisler, this is a battle for 6. Sean Macbeth started in 11th position, has climbed all the way to P7. Not sure that he's going to have anything for a top 5 today, as ahead of these two, it is nearly 10 seconds to the next car in line. But hey, one more position is more points on the board. So the SRT Porsche is going to try and put one over on the Iceman.
Christian Eisler's had a pretty quiet race today, actually. We haven't talked about him too much. Macbeth, though, has been nicely going up through the field after kind of qualifying a little further down than I'm sure he'd like to.
Yeah, I mean, to Macbeth's credit, he's doing exactly what we predicted, which was take his speed in the race and use it to good effect. Eisler, you mentioned not having a very active race. He actually started in 7th, so he's one position up, but we do know that that could have come from Caraballo since he exited from this race. Oh, wow! Where was Macbeth going there? Just suddenly dove the car into the S's, almost like he expected a pass, and loaded up in time, but that made me sit up.
He's kept with him here, too. He turned 1, he got real close to the back.
Up and over the crest of Clayton. A little bit off the apex compared to Eisler, though. Porsche versus Ferrari between these two. Eisler in the orange Ferrari, the green, white, and black Porsche. Macbeth. Down to 8 minutes to go. Macbeth looking to use the rear traction of that German vehicle to try and get the run up the Andretti straight. He's close. Not as close as I think he needs to be, but boy, last lap certainly showed that he can send it in from very far back. How daring is he is the question. And is Eisler going to be watching another time that he just looks like he's going to try something and backs out of it? I tell you what, if he is even 2 feet closer next time through, I'm willing to bet that he's actually going to make a legitimate attempt.
If there's no contact first, I think so too.
Boy, I certainly would be watching my mirrors if I was Eisler. I wouldn't care how far back he is. I'm taking a shallow entry into that corner. Watching from on board Sean's car. over the crest and down through 4 into Moss Hairpin. And he set him up just that little bit better. Oh, he's looking very close this time. I think this is the one.
I'm thinking so as well. Well, it's hard to tell. Good run by Eisler, too.
And starting the game. Eisler staying to the inside. He knows it. Yeah, he covers him off this time. Interesting. Macbeth not as gutsy, sending it around the outside. He must really like that shallow entry in this Porsche with the way that he's been driving that corner. Ooh, taking a lot of the exit curve, though. Not missing anything out front. All the drivers in front of these two are pretty well separated. So this is our best battle for the top of the field.
Yeah, it looks like Utreras has pulled away again from Diaz for second place. That gap is up over a second now, so this is the closest battle. And Macbeth gets a good launch again out of Moss. But so does Eisler. That seems where Eisler might be the strongest on the track, and I think crucially that's going to keep him this position.
Yeah, I agree. Whatever he's doing it right, because this is the only opportunity that we've seen for Macbeth to try anything, and try as he might, it is just not allowing him the position. Meanwhile, back in 10th place, Tony Costello getting overtaken by Andrew Caron.
And right behind him, Jeffrey Arroyan is there as well in this little group. William Laster not too far ahead of these guys.
Yeah, Laster was able to keep that gap while Costello was the car in front of the duo. Now, what can he do with Andrew behind him? Is the number 27 faster than the Ford? Not going to have too many laps to prove it.
Keep your eye on Jeffrey Arroyan, too. He looks awfully hungry behind Tony Costello right now for that position. That's back in 11th.
Yeah, a number of cars that are seemingly very close to one another, but we've got to go back to Macbeth, because Macbeth is closing. It's the closest he has been. Eisler way to the inside this time, coming down into turn 8. Macbeth sends it in deep the long way around. The car starts to slide. That Porsche is going around. There's no saving it, and he loses out on a valiant attempt to take the position. In fact, Mo Broughton gets by before he can get going.
Oh, I thought for sure he might be able to hang on to that. It was so close. Such a great chance.
And that battle that we were wondering about, that's Laster, who's been held up coming through White's corner. That brings Caron closer. This is going to get even spicier now. Yeah, I honestly didn't think that, as Laster goes way wide around Clayton, Caron can't take advantage of it quite yet, but he gets awful close to the back. But watching Macbeth start to spin, the first thing that came to mind is the engine is way at the back of the Porsche. I do not think he's going to be able to grab that car. Tell you what, though, credit to him for trying it. At least he gave it a go.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a heck of an attempt, and I mean, it wasn't going to happen if he didn't try something too. So he had to give it a go, like you said.
2.5 minutes left on the clock now. Macbeth has recollected himself and is already pulling away from poor Laster, who continues to be under threat from the BMW of Andrew Caron. This is for 9th position that these drivers are fighting for. Much better line through Clayton for the Ford this time. No scare for the 307. If he keeps this distance, I think he'll be able to come home with that 9th place. Real quick glance at 4th place, because Nick Harwood is keeping Acosta honest. That's Rodrigo Munoz and Zach Hefner staying out of the way to the outside of the course. Just lap cars trying to keep drivers from inconveniencing other drivers. Actually, Hefner might be damaged because he is still off course.
I think that might have been another incident with him. I'm not sure. Couldn't find it, but yeah, he looked pretty bad.
He came together with Munoz. I don't think we have time for the replay, unfortunately, but the two did make contact, and I think it damaged the suspension of him. As the purple, green, rainbow, every-colored Porsche of Karl Modoff, space-themed, as my director inserts in my ear. I'll dig that. The 948 takes the white flag, crosses the line with one more lap to go to finally get back to the top spot. So can anybody do anything once Karl Modoff gets his feet underneath him? Is this the start of another dominant season? It's not the biggest gap that we've seen for Modoff compared to previous seasons, but 8 seconds still is a gauntlet thrown down, Nick.
Oh yeah, and in 8 seconds in the competition this year, I think he will definitely take that. We've obviously definitely seen bigger gaps from him before, but definitely nowhere close to this year. I haven't seen a win out of him this year. This one is going to feel really good for Karl.
You're about to see that win out of him, because up the Mario Andretti straight, he could just about run out of fuel from here and coast it across the line. Just 3 more corners to go. Into the S's, he swings it. Some lap traffic in front of him, actually off track. Hopefully that doesn't compromise him. That is Sebastian Massieri. He slows up to make sure he doesn't run into him. Karl Modoff comes to the line, takes the victory here in round 4, his first of the season. Utredes follows him home into second place from 4th on the grid. And Michael Diaz does not finish second, but I don't think he's going to be happy with 3rd. Costa, still the only driver to have a complete top 5 finish in every race. 4th place for him this time through. Eisler comes home P6 ahead of Mo Broughton. And Macbeth stays ahead of Caron. Actually, did Laster get passed by both of them?
Oh, he may have, yeah, because Royan.
Let's check the replay on where this happened. We were praising him so much.
Yeah, he had to have gone off or something. We'll take a look here.
Oh, you know what? It was a couple laps ago, and I think it was through Clayton.
We saw him get close that one lap. Had to have that happened again.
Yeah, it was out of Quebec. Yeah, we just saw it on screen that the car went wide and Caron pounced. So that's going to take us to the end as all the drivers have crossed the line. We're going to come back after a short break with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. But if you stick around on screen, you can see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. Welcome back to MoSport, Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, where we watched round 4 of the PRL GTE Sports Car Series, and Carl Modoff, our two-time champion, is back at the top spot. His first win of the season from pole was followed there by the number 10 of Javi Uterres, who I have to say had a fantastic race, really ran this one beautifully. Michael Diaz finished behind him with another podium at third place, but Diaz will have to do a little bit more than that to take the championship. Abner Acosta, the championship leader coming into this one, got a fourth himself, with Nick Harwood finishing P5, having climbed from 8th. A bit of a quiet run, but a good finish. Christian Eisler with a 6th place was ahead of Pete Mobraten in 7th. Sean Macbeth could have had that 6th place that Eisler got in the end, but poor Sean spun the car in a attempt at a pass late in the race. He fell down to 8th position after that. Andrew Caron takes 9th, and William Laster, who I still say had probably the pass of the race, running through the grass and avoiding an accident, taking 3 for 1 really, wound up in the top 10.
Right behind him, great climb tonight from Jeffrey Arroyo, and saw him off track a couple times as well, but nonetheless, he's going to go from 22nd to 11th on the grid. Tony Costello going to be right behind him. Cristobal Valenzuela in 13th, 14th, and 15th go to Josh Daniels and Corey Clark, with Tyler Gilmet also climbing up from 27th to 16th behind him. Andres Espinoza and Pablo Uribe are the last 2 cars to finish on the lead lap. Rodrigo Munoz and Cody Bauman will round out the top 20 at 1 lap down.
21st goes to Michael Stogbauer, with Zach Hefner 22nd. Sebastian Maciera finishes 23rd, 4 laps down, and Joey Trungale as well, that many back in 24th. Then you get to the DNFs for the day. Fernando Borda in 25th, Lee Peterson 26th, Moises Carvalho, another very, very bad finish. He's hot or cold this season, 27th. Matthew Hall 28th, and Justin Rame 29th. Kita and Wright did not starts for this race. We've got our winner ready to talk to us. Carl Modoff joins us in the booth after his first win of the season. Carl, you managed to put it on pole. You started to run away from Modoff this time. And then from there, it looked like it was kind of business as usual for you.
Yeah, it was a great race. Really amped about that one. I've been traveling a lot, so I have been busy and, been getting kind of my butt whipped. So it was nice to be able to have a good week of being able to actually practice and then to be able to put it all together. Motorsport's awesome. Super fun to drive, very difficult to pass on. So I figured qualifying would be important, so I focused on that. I was pretty stoked to be able to take the pole. And then once I was able to get a little bit of breathing space after Moses and Michael started battling a little bit, made my life a lot easier, but I was definitely still sweating it the whole time because one minor mistake here could be your end of your race.
Yeah, it certainly seemed like that with a few drivers and the amount that found themselves in the tires. Now, we've noted your paint scheme this season a few times. I think it's incredibly pretty, but tell us a little bit about this team and Molecule East or Molecule Sports that you've got on there. What's with the new pattern?
So the new pattern is just something that Corey wanted to do and he came up with, and it looks really awesome on the car. So we decided to go with that. And then Molecule is basically a set of cleaners that are made for fire suit Nomex suits. So, if you race and you have a Nomex suit, it's basically something that you can safely wash your product with without deteriorating your Nomex. A lot of your normal detergents do. So they came on board and paid for my sponsorship for this season, which is really awesome. I appreciate that. So put their branding on the car and kind of goes with the paint scheme. So it looks pretty cool.
Well, I have to take it both they and you are very happy then you finally scored win number 1. Is this a sign of more things to come?
I sure do hope so. I'm already looking forward to next week. So, I'm sure everyone will come back with their A game and looking forward to another one like this.
Well, we'll look forward to it as well. Congratulations. That was Carl Modoff, our winner here at MoSport today. Nick is going to be talking to third place finisher Michael Diaz.
I am indeed. And Michael, it was a third place finish for you tonight. We were kind of expecting coming into this, it might be another second place finish. You were 2 second place finishes coming into tonight in a row, but Javi just barely got you there at the end, it looked like.
Yeah. First of all, how's it going, guys? Thanks for hosting. I really didn't have any practice all week. Just like yesterday, I got into the host that the guys from CRT make. Thanks for that. I was basically lost half the track. I had no idea really what I was doing.
Yeah, well, still, I mean, honestly, very impressive run if to finish third like that. We saw you finish further back at Monza, but you're setting up quite a points run. It looks like here in the championship now.
Yeah, that was my main objective today. Just finish the race. Have no major incidents. Just get as many points as I could get. Really, I got lucky to be in third because Moises had a problem and Abner had a fuel problem as well. So it was really just lucky today.
Yeah, we saw you in the pits. Uh, we were wondering if, I mean, you got jumped there by Javi. Did you know what kind of strategy you wanted to have into this? You mentioned you had so little practice. Did that go through your head at all? The undercut or overcutting, any of that stuff?
Not really. I was just driving as fast as I could and get whatever I could.
Well, it sounds like you pretty much winged it for the most part tonight, but so it makes your podium all the more impressive. Hopefully we get to talk to you again, heading to a couple cool tracks like Road Atlanta, it looks like next week.
Hopefully. Anyways, thanks, guys.
That was third place finisher Michael Diaz. Second place, Javi Gutierrez has joined us. Javi, you really had to work for this one. You were caught in that fight, and then the pit stops happened, and it looked like the skies opened.
Yeah, it was a really fun race. I mean, unfortunately, I couldn't put a good lap on quali, so I got stuck behind Michael and Moises, and unfortunately, Moises have some issues. But then Abner also started attacking, so I decided just to save some tires and see what happened, and I was able to get some rid of the end and pull some gap from Michael.
Did the thought ever occur to you to try an undercut instead and pit early, or were you pretty content to try the move that you made, which was the overcut?
Well, I was looking to see how traffic in front, to see was any chances for me to do some other move. But I mean, there was not too much traffic in front. Even I was trying to see if I can do another lap, trying to save some fuel, but it was impossible. So I just trying to do a good pit stop and come back ahead of Michael, and I think that works at the end.
With the next track being Road Atlanta and there being at least a little bit more opportunity to pass, do you think a win might be on the cards for you?
Well, yeah, I'm looking for, Road Atlanta is one of my favorite tracks. I've been there multiple times, and I'm able to race a couple times there. So hopefully I can pull up a good shot, and who knows, hopefully a victory. We're looking forward to that.
All right. We look forward to seeing if you could face off with the likes of Modaf Caraballo. Congratulations on a second place.
Thank you, guys.
It's Javi Gutierrez, who, as we said, climbed from the second row up to the second spot. And that's going to close things out for us today. Of course, a big thank you goes to our two sponsors for this season, both to Simulation Motorsports Affinity. SIMMSA.net is where you can find them and see if they can help you out, or if they can connect you to many of the various people that we discussed earlier in the broadcast in the real world and sim racing community. Also to ButtKicker. Again, they are at thebuttkicker.com. Don't listen to me on the various t-shirt ideas, but we do have prizes that are up for grabs for the drivers thanks to ButtKicker. Feel what you've been missing. Also thanks to iRacing. You can find them at their YouTube page, where they have a big red button that says subscribe. If you haven't clicked that, make sure and do that. You'll get all of their PRL GTE sports car series, as well as many other races in your YouTube feed. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast. You can see them listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today as well, Nick, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. As we mentioned, in a week's time, we'll be headed to Road Atlanta. That'll be Tuesday, July 16th at 9 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. However, until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.